Okay, you guys. This is, the Chris Watts thing that I was talking about earlier. It is on.
It's Monday morning, August 13th, 2018. Colorado mother Nicole Atkinson is growing increasingly concerned. She's not been able to get in touch with her best friend, 34-year-old Shanann Watts.
And of course, I can't.
Nicole was texting, she was calling. She got
I'm not going
she thought
to
that
record
was
all the
very
way through this,
unusual
guys.
and
Sorry.
odd. She had some immediate concerns that things weren't right.
Nicole was a self-described best friend of Shanann. They were co-workers, worked for the same company, sold the same product. By all accounts, they shared pretty much everything in their lives with each other.
Just a day earlier, the friends had been in Arizona on a work trip for their direct sales company, Lavelle.
Shanann Watts is a very bubbly, outgoing person, but on this particular business trip, her coworkers noticed that she seemed really tired. She didn't want to eat anything. She just seemed to lack her usual energy. Shanann has some serious medical issues. She has lupus. Lupus is a serious autoimmune disease. It can make your entire body, all your joints ache. It just affects every aspect of one's life.
I wonder how much truth they're going to put in this. That's what I'm curious about.
Already a mom to 4-year-old Bella and 3-year-old Cece, Shanann and her husband of 6 years, Chris, are expecting a baby boy they have already named Nico.
After Shanann and Nicole get back from their work trip, Nicole drops Shanann off at her house about 1:48 a.m. on August 13th.
Sorry for the
Next
train.
morning,
You're on a
Nicole checks
reflection.
on her
If they can see
by
you.
text message. She knows that Shanann had been feeling exhausted on that trip, but also knew that she had a prenatal appointment with her doctor that morning. So Nicole checks on her to find out how she's feeling, how the doctor's appointment went, and she doesn't get a response.
Nicole Atkinson gets nervous and worried about her friend and goes by the house to check on her and notices that no one's answering the door. Shanann's car is still in the garage and she just can't get in the house.
With no sign of Shanann or the girls, Nicole urgently calls Shanann's husband, Chris Watts.
Chris worked in the oil field industry. He was a supervisor and typically visited various well sites throughout the day. He told Nicole that Shanann just had gone somewhere with the girls and not to be alarmed.
Nicole says, wait a minute, something's very wrong. I think I should call the police. He tells her, just wait, I'll be right home. But Nicole doesn't hesitate. She calls 911 anyway.
Sorry about the train, guys.
I'm calling because I'm concerned about a friend of mine. She's not answering the doors. She's not responding to text messages, phone calls, and there's no movement in the house whatsoever.
At 1:42 p.m., Frederick Police Officer Scott Coonrod meets Nicole and her son at the scene for a wellness check.
How you guys doing?
Hi.
Here, Nicole?
Yes.
What's going on?
So I called, I texted. Her car's in the garage. Her shoes she wears every single day are right at the front door.
Asking there's not a...
The girl who went on a play date, but they're 4 and 2. She went on a play date. Why would she take a car? They're both in the car.
Officer Coonrod from the Frederick Police Department can't just walk up and kick the front door in. So he does the same type of thing that Nicole had done.
Shanann, are you home?
Some people won't be able to watch
Police
this.
department, if anyone's inside,
So
make
what a
yourself
better
known.
way?
Officer Coonrod gets no response, obviously doesn't hear any
I'm
children.
gonna watch it, why not record
they
it?
wait for Mr.
Right?
Watts to get home.
After 2 p.m., Chris
And just so you
finally
know, that's a
arrives at the
little gross.
home to greet Coonrod.
God, how you doing?
Right away, they started identifying and finding things that she would have never left the home without. They
No,
find
I'm
church.
not gonna record the whole thing.
Her purse is her medication.
It's like an hour.
Her medication's still on here.
They found her Apple Watch, they found her phone, and her suitcase is still in the home, not unpacked, still packed from the night before.
The officers then
find
head
headphones,
upstairs
so I'm using
to
the
look for any
speaker.
signs of Shanann and the girls.
Officer Coonrod noticed that in Chris and Shanann's bedroom, the sheets have been stripped. There's a pile of them on the floor, and I believe they realized that a fitted bed sheet is missing.
When I looked at the sheets and the comforters, I don't see anything. It's kind of hard. Nothing's on the bed, though.
Then Chris approaches police with a very intriguing item. He says he found it on his wife's nightstand. It's her wedding ring she's left behind.
There was no note or anything by the wedding ring?
When all is said and done, police realize what has been left behind, important items, so they need to get more information from Chris.
Did she tell you anything about leaving, moving out?
Not moving out. I mean, last time I talked to her this morning, she said she's going to take the kids to a friend's house, and she asked where she was going to be. And then I've texted her today and never heard anything. But Carly
Such a liar.
Unless somebody can pick her up. But the people that I know, nobody searched them, nobody seen them.
The fact that Shanann had gone completely silent was alarming to everybody. This is completely out of the norm unless something had gone seriously wrong.
Officers then pressed Chris for more details about the origins of his relationship with
Look at
Shanann.
this, way back and forth.
Shanann is the oldest daughter of
Everything
Frank
tells you
and Sandy
something.
Rusek. And she has a younger brother named Frank Jr. They're a happy family of 4. Shanann is a vibrant, outgoing young woman, but there comes a time when she starts to not feel well. She has debilitating migraines and other health issues. She is diagnosed as having lupus at 26.
I felt a lot of discomforts, a lot of aches, a lot of bad moods. And in the part where I gave up on everything, I quit my job of 9 years. I just said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And I got a friend request from Chris.
Chris Watts is the only son of Cindy and Ronnie Watts, and he has one sister, and both he and Shanann are from small towns in North Carolina. Chris is passionate about cars. In fact, his goal in life is to be part of a NASCAR pit crew.
What a
Shanann and
bull.
Chris had mutual friends, and so this is what spurred
no, I know,
him to send
but-
this Facebook message. She was a little hesitant to start a new romance.
I gave every excuse for him to run. I mean, I gave him an out every single day, but he stuck around. And he stuck around because he was the one for me. And he is amazing. And I can't tell you how wonderful he is.
In 2012, the happy couple marries. A few months later, they decide to make the move from North Carolina to Colorado in hopes the climate would ease the symptoms of Shanann's lupus.
They had vacationed out in Colorado, had kind of fallen in love with the area. So the Wattses ended up buying a home in Frederick, Colorado, which is a great little suburban community north of Denver.
Shanann and Chris's first daughter, Bella, was born in December 2013. And then about a year and a half later, they have their second child, Celeste, whom they called Cece, in July of 2015.
Chris referred to Bella as kind of the calm and measured and caring one. Cece, on the other hand, was more rambunctious. I think they nicknamed her Rampage. She only had 2 speeds. If she wasn't sleeping, she was going.
Did you hear what they
On
named
the
her?
outside, this looks like the all-American
Rampage.
family. The mom, the dad, the 2 little girls, and a 3rd baby on the way. Everything seems completely bucolic with this family. But 3 of them are missing.
As word of Shanann's disappearance spreads,
It's gonna go
the
to
Watts
commercial.
neighbor, Nathan Trinistich, stops by and alerts officers he may be in possession of critical evidence.
Nate explains that he has household surveillance cameras on the outside of his house that face toward the direction of the Watts home, and they record 24/7. And so the officers, as well as Chris, go over to Nate's house to view the video footage of that morning.
Maybe that video will give police some definitive answers about what happened to Shanann and the little girls.
And
It's
we're
been
back.
almost 10 hours since Colorado father Chris Watts last saw his pregnant wife Shanann and 2 young daughters. Frederick police officers hope surveillance footage will provide clues to their whereabouts.
Law enforcement goes over to the neighbor's house. He has the video pulled up on the TV screen.
This is him at 517.
They're all watching this video at the same time. And what that video surveillance showed was at about 5:45 in the morning, 5:30 to 5:45, it shows Chris backing his work truck into his driveway with a portion of the bed of the truck backed up into the garage.
It is
And he's, like, not
fascinating to
even
watch
watching.
Chris Watts as he looks at this video being played on his neighbor's television. Watch his body language. He can't stop moving. His hands are up on top of his head.
We had issues the other week when people were kind of stealing stuff out of like garages.
Sorry
stuff like
guys,
that.
I'm so shaky.
And I have parking control right here. Yeah.
Chris becomes particularly chatty with the officers, trying to explain
It's
what
getting
he was
a little chilly
doing,
out here.
where his truck was parked, why he had backed it up into the driveway.
Loading my stuff up in my coolers, my water jugs, my book bag, my computers.
The bottom line to this surveillance video, there's no definitive answers about what happened to Shanann and the girls.
All right, appreciate your time. Hopefully something comes up, isn't it?
As they're walking out the house, it looks like they're all about to walk out together, and Nathan grabs Officer Coonrod.
You just want to go talk to him? I'm going to get his info real quick.
I think if it wasn't for that neighbor,
No. In essence, what
I
the
don't
neighbor
know.
says to
Do
law
you guys
enforcement
think
is,
if it
there's
wasn't
something wrong
for
here.
the neighbor, or do you think?
Red flags are going up in the neighbor's mind.
I'm sure there were other
That's a very
things that-
unusual way for him to act.
The investigation quickly turned into trying to
Caught
figure
their,
out
you know.
what was really going on with this family. Were there any strains on the relationship? That's a natural place for investigators to go when somebody is missing like this and there's no logical explanation.
To learn more, officers speak with Shanann's closest friends.
Sorry, I'm so wobbly.
They reveal that her world revolves around family and her budding sales career.
Level, it's a nutrition, wellness company.
I'm trying
She
to
sold
get a good
supplements,
picture for you
patches,
guys.
and shakes that are supposed to make you healthier,
kinda
feel better,
hard.
have more energy.
If you're a thriver and on here, if you've gained so much more confidence than you had before, put a comment below, show the hearts.
She posted regularly, if not daily, videos that were both related to her work with Lavelle and Thrive, but also personal posts updating friends and family on the kids and
Recording
Chris
on a
and her
phone from a
relationship.
phone.
At this point, you come to realize there just is almost nothing that Shanann is not going to post on Facebook.
Hi.
She even posted the moment that she told Chris they were going to have another baby. That's a really intimate moment.
Did it again.
I like that shirt.
Excited, like seriously.
Really?
That's awesome.
Looking at Shanann and Chris's relationship through the lens of social media, one would think that this was a family that was happy and that they were adventurous and that the girls were thriving, that the relationship was in a good place.
All right, everybody, have an amazing
I
day.
don't know,
and I love
according
you
to
all.
a lot of people that have
While
seen it,
things between the couple appear
online.
harmonious online,
assume that she was a
Shanann's
bossy
friends
person.
tell officers a very different story.
In July 2018, she goes back to North Carolina with the girls for 5 weeks. Chris doesn't go, and then Chris starts acting strangely. Text messages reveal that Chris has told her he's not too happy about having a third child. 2 children were enough.
According to friends, tensions came to a head in Arizona
How do you-
just days before she
How
disappeared.
do you do that? Like, how do
So
you?
while Nicole and Shanann are on this
I don't
trip
get
in
that.
Arizona, Shanann notices a charge in her credit card that seemed too much for one person's dinner.
Shanann obviously immediately jumped to, he must be cheating on me, he must be out on a date while I'm out of town,
I don't even know if you guys can
and
hear me when I
immediately started
talk.
confronting her husband
Probably
about this.
can't.
He said
We
that
just
he
hear
had
mumbling.
gone to a Colorado Rockies baseball game, had stopped in for a meal, was there by himself, denied that there was any infidelity or unfaithful behavior going on at all.
After 24 hours of searching, there is still no sign of Shanann, Bella, and Celeste.
We brought in cadaver dogs to start looking for decomposition scent, to start looking for scents of the girls and of Shanann.
They start really searching through this house for forensic evidence. And somebody finds in the kitchen trash can a balled up bed sheet. This is the sheet from the master bedroom. This really made police even more suspicious.
And soon, the local media picks up on the story.
Tonight, police issued a missing endangered alert for
Getting ready
Shannon
for a
Watts and her
commercial.
2 daughters. Her husband says she's been missing since Monday morning.
My name's Thomas Hoppo. I'm a reporter for Denver 7, and I cover the story since day one. So when we got to Frederick, Chris Watts was on the front porch, but I was supposed to only speak with his friend Nick. Nick told me, well, Chris is here. He's willing to do an interview with you. Do you think she just took off? Do you think?
I mean, right now I don't even want to just like throw anything out there. Like, I hope that she's somewhere safe right now and with the kids.
At some point I had to ask, were you involved somehow without asking that directly? And so the question that I came up with as I'm doing this interview was, did you guys get into an argument? And he actually answered the question, which was fairly shocking.
It wasn't like an argument. We had an emotional conversation, but I'll leave it at that.
And immediately afterwards, looks into the camera and asks for them to come home.
Shanann, Bella, Celeste, if you're out there, just come back. Like, if somebody has her, just please bring her back. I need to see everybody. I need to see everybody again. This house is not complete without anybody here.
As a journalist, we can only report the facts. We don't speculate. But after we did that interview, me and my photographer were a little weirded out.
The right words seemed to be coming out of his mouth. He seemed to be saying the right things, but the way he was saying it, I think, struck everyone as particularly cold, particularly emotionless.
Chris Watts is all over television begging for his family's safe return, but there's someone watching that's going to turn this case on its head.
I decided that it's probably a good idea to just come talk to you guys. I don't think anybody in his life knows about me. I really don't. Like at all.
The disappearance of a pregnant Frederick woman and her 2 children has captured the nation's attention.
As the search for Shanann, Bella, and Celeste Watts continues, the intense media coverage leads to an unexpected tip.
Law enforcement got a phone call from a woman named offering to be interviewed as part of this investigation to offer up to investigators what she knew.
Sorry guys, stupid internet.
At work, and we kind of talked in passing and then started to get to know each other. We started hanging out pretty frequently around, I want to say like the last week of June, somewhere around there. He informed me that he did have 2 kids, and he also told me that he was currently in the process of a separation from his wife. As far as I knew, that was becoming pretty finalized.
Nicole Kessinger turned out to have information that I can best describe as being a bombshell.
I think that he was looking for a relationship with me.
Police found evidence that they were having a relationship. They found emails between the 2 on the work computers. There were cards that Chris had sent to Nicole with love notes and song lyrics. There are photos of the 2 together. He told her that he was getting a divorce, and Nicole talked about helping Chris find an apartment for him and the 2 girls after the divorce was final.
While Shanann and the girls are in North Carolina on their vacation, Chris is making moves of his own back home with Nikki. He says to this new woman in his life, "I love you." It turns out Shanann was not crazy, and that credit card alert she was so worried about, that was a romantic dinner with Nikki.
I wonder if there's more to this story than I know, because I think he's a really good guy, and, I'm worried about his life story. And it's freaking me out because the whole thing
Is she really worried?
so little. She's pregnant. Oh, and it's like, where's their mom?
Police have absolutely no hard evidence as to where Shanann and the girls are, but they have this growing body of suspicion about Chris Watts. He is the last person who saw these people alive. He's got to know more than he's saying.
On August 15th, investigators decide to focus on Chris's movements the day Shanann disappeared.
Sorry.
Simultaneously, they bring him in for a lie detector test. Later, Colorado Bureau Investigating Agent Tammy Lee and FBI Agent Graham Coder sit down with Chris and share the results.
He did not pass the polygraph test. Okay. So now we need to talk about what actually happened. The only way they could have left is in your truck.
No way, because I didn't just throw them in my truck.
You know your truck has GPS, right? You know that thing pings every 10 seconds? So we will know exactly where you went.
Police had interviewed some of his
I wonder if
coworkers.
he really knew.
They identified the fact that he was driving a company truck and that truck had GPS that would be downloadable. And they learned that he had not gone into the office, which was somewhat rare, but that he had gone directly from his house out to a well site.
Investigators descend upon the site and launch a drone search in pursuit of evidence.
And what did they find in that oil field? They find the missing bed sheet, and it matches exactly with the bed sheet they found in the kitchen trash can.
From the drone, they were able to get photographs, send those back to the detectives and the agents who were interviewing Mr. Watts back at the Frederick Police Department.
But you weren't here today lying about something, so we were talking about that, okay? I'm not proud of it. I cheated on her and I feel horrible for it. Like, she was pregnant.
After hours of questioning, the only big piece of news that Chris reveals to them is that he's having an affair. But they already know that because his mistress has already told them the whole story. But to agents, they know he's starting to crack.
And you have not shed one tear in 2 days that you've been here.
No.
Not one. I don't get it. These are your baby girls. And you have not shed one tear over them not being around. You're crying with your wife that you're leaving her.
Yeah.
But you don't cry that your 2 little baby girls.
I'm hoping they're still around somewhere. I'm hoping they're still somewhere.
It's a real game of cat and mouse in that interrogation room. He insists he's telling the truth, but they know he's lying. Suddenly, they take a different tact.
Chris, did Shanann do something to them?
No, I don't know.
Did Shanann do something to them, and then did you feel like you had to do something to Shanann?
There's a pause. He kind of sits back and says, if I can have a chance to speak to my father, I'll tell you what had happened. And they ultimately do give him an opportunity to talk to his dad. His father, Ronnie Watts, comes into the room. Agents leave, but they all know that this is still being recorded.
I want to protect her. I don't want to protect her. I don't know what else to say. She hurt him. Yeah.
Chris eventually tells his dad that he saw Shanann hurting the girls on a baby monitor.
She took both of them then. I forgot to say anything for her. And if she killed Lucy's son, took them to death, lost it and took her.
This is a compelling story that Chris Watts is telling about Shanann killing her children. Shanann was a loving, fabulous, doting mother. She would never, ever hurt those children.
So after Chris confesses to killing Shanann, the agents come in and they start asking more questions of him, and they want to know where Shanann and the little girls are. The agents bring Chris an overhead shot of an oil site called Survey 319.
Whereabouts is Shanann and the girls?
Are they in tanks?
He identifies 2 large oil tanks. One that he had put Bella in and one that he had put Celeste in. And then identifies a bald spot in the grass where he had buried Shanann and their unborn child.
Chris, can you stand up for me?
At 11:30 p.m. on August 15th, Watts is arrested on suspicion of 3 counts of first-degree murder.
He's arrested right on the spot. A day before pleading for his kids and wife to come home, and the next admitting to killing his wife. It was unreal.
The next day, a team is sent to the oil site to recover the bodies. Shanann is discovered first, buried in a shallow grave. Then, the gruesome recovery efforts begin to retrieve the bodies of Bella and Celeste.
This is a hazardous recovery effort. Obviously, it's horrifying in its graphic nature and in its detail. We have to have crime scene personnel basically reaching in and climbing into these tanks to recover these 2 little girl bodies. From a basic human reaction, how in the world can you do that to your own kids?
That turned out to be quite an undertaking, and a lot of different folks had to be involved in that, and I don't know that any of them will ever be the same.
Soon, word of Chris Watts' stunning arrest becomes national news.
The man who police say killed his wife and 2 young daughters, now telling investigators his wife actually took the lives of their children.
People all across the United States were fixated on this story. A man begging for the return of his children. Turns out he killed his wife and buried all their bodies out in an oil field. This is a dichotomy of personalities here. Who is the real Chris Watts?
I trusted you to take care of them, not kill them. You disgust me.
As friends and family mourn the unspeakable deaths of Shanann, Bella, and Celeste, a veteran prosecutor takes over the case.
My name is Michael J. Rourke. I'm the district attorney here in Wells County, Colorado. I was the lead prosecutor on the Christopher Watts case. Ultimately, Christopher Watts was charged with 9 counts total, 5 counts of first-degree murder. Count 6 was the unlawful termination of a pregnancy. And then counts 7, 8, and 9 were tampering with a deceased human body. At this point, we are looking long-term down the road at a trial and a determination as to whether or not ultimately we're going to seek the death penalty under Colorado law.
Chris Watts, however, insists that he had nothing to do with the deaths of his daughters and that he killed his wife because he witnessed her strangling the girls. A team of public defenders begins building his case.
Shortly after Chris is arrested, one of his public defenders files a motion asking for DNA swabs of Bella and Cece's neck.
They were hoping that DNA evidence would prove Chris's story that Shanann strangled the kids before he strangled her.
The motion is denied. Days later, Chris's defense takes a drastic turn.
I specifically remember getting an email from the public defenders that were assigned to the case. They proposed the idea that Chris may be willing to plead guilty to first-degree murder charges if our office was willing to remove the possibility of the death penalty. We didn't give them an answer right away. We told them that we needed to go through our process and see if that was something that we were willing to do.
Christopher Watts, the man accused of killing his wife and 3 kids, will spend the rest of his life in prison as the result of a plea deal.
On November 6th, Chris Watts pleads guilty to all 9 charges.
He accepts a plea bargain to take death off the table, which in effect he's pleading guilty to killing his daughters as well as his wife. His story about Shanann killing the children and him watching it on a baby monitor is nonsense.
The spotlight that he tried to shine on Shanann, falsely, incorrectly, and frankly a flat-out lie, has been corrected. The spotlight shines directly where it belongs, on him.
2 weeks later, at the Weld County Courthouse, Chris's sentencing hearing commences.
At the sentencing, the families gather, the public gathers, the media is watching. We are finally going to hear from Chris Watts. What does he have to say?
Court is in session. The Honorable Marcelo Cobb presiding.
Good morning. You're welcome to be seated.
As is custom, the victim's family is given an opportunity to address the convicted. So Shanann's father, Frank Rusick, speaks to the man who murdered his daughter.
Life will never be the same without Shanann, Bella, and Celeste and Nico. They were taken by a heartless one. This is the heartless one, the evil monster. Who dare you take the lives of my daughter Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico? I trusted you to take care of them, not kill them. You disgust me.
After the Rusick family speaks, Rourke delivers his closing remarks to the courtroom.
Why did this have to happen? How could a seemingly normal husband and father annihilate his entire family? These are the questions that only one individual in this courtroom or on this planet knows the answers to. It appeared to us as if he had every intention of starting a brand new life, clean of Shanann and Bella and Celeste and Nico, with the love of his life, is how he described Nicole Kessinger.
Before the judge delivers his sentence, Chris is afforded an opportunity to speak.
Would you like to make a statement?
No, sir.
Thank you.
I wasn't surprised, because at that point, what's he going to say? And even if he would have said anything, I didn't have any faith that what he would have said would have been the truth anyway.
Nothing less than a maximum sentence would be appropriate, and anything less than the maximum sentence would depreciate the seriousness of this offense.
The judge then handed down 3 life sentences plus 86 years for the remaining charges, to include the maximum sentence for the unlawful termination of a pregnancy charge, which was really important to the Rusick family, that there was that acknowledgement of that charge.
Chris Watts is going to prison for the rest of his life. That is where he will die. But the sentencing was almost a letdown because he didn't speak. We still have so many unanswered questions. Why did he do this? What caused him to snap? What was the trigger to this deadly act?
Nearly 4 months later, there's a shocking turn of events.
Suddenly, Chris Watts has agreed to speak to agents about the case.
Chris?
You remember us?
Yes. Yes. Okay.
Will they finally find out the whole truth? Agents, it's very casual. They're softening him up. They're making him feel comfortable enough to open up.
Did you guys ever fight? Did you ever?
Oh, he
Was
tells
there
them,
any domestic violence in the house?
Oh, I think that's what makes all this even more hard to understand from my standpoint. Because
takes them on a car ride after
there's
he kills
always
their mother.
points like in a marriage where like, you know, the dominant person like, you know, takes control of everything. But like my whole life I just kinda went with the flow.
You just don't seem like you want to be in those videos.
No.
Like, I feel like you were being forced to be in those videos. And correct me if I'm wrong, but
Yeah, I hated being I did it because for her, because it was for her business and stuff. I hated just being out for everybody to see.
The investigators then turned to the events that prompted Chris to massacre his entire family.
Can we talk about the hardest subject? The last thing we talked about was where the girls were, but we never really got to talk about that night. So what happened?
I just wanted to tell her how I was feeling at that point in time. Like I didn't feel like me and her were compatible anymore. She got home like at 2 o'clock. You know, I felt her get into bed, and I could kind of feel her kind of stirring around a little bit. I kind of just felt like something. She knew what was going on, and she started rubbing her hand on me, and we ended up having sex. But I guess that was more like a test.
Oh,
I would have thought.
Interesting. Okay.
It must have been kind of shocking to the agents to hear Chris say he was going to confront his wife, and then the two of them had sex.
When I woke up later on in the morning, I pretty much told her, like, you know, I didn't think it was going to work anymore. And she was like, what happened? What was last night, you know?
did she accuse you of cheating at that point?
Mm-hmm.
So what'd she say?
She's like, I knew there was somebody else. I knew there was somebody else. I told her I didn't love her anymore. I got on top of her. And she just told me, you know, like, to get off of her. She's like, never gonna see the kids again. Never gonna see them again. Get off of me. That's what happened.
That makes no sense.
Shanann told him
He kills
straight
his
out,
wife.
you will never see the kids again.
So he kills
This
his wife.
made him so enraged that
And then
he
takes his
grabbed
kids out
her
and
by
kills
the
them
throat
too?
and for some reason just could not let go.
But he killed his wife
I just felt
because
like
she
it
told
was-
him he'd never see the kids again.
I don't even want to say it, but like I had to. It
What
just
would
felt
be
like
the point of
there
killing?
was already
You see what
something in
I'm
my
saying?
mind that I was planning that I was going to do it, and I woke up that morning, it was going to happen. I had no control of it.
He's sick.
Like, why couldn't I just let go?
No, I know. I'm just saying that whole story makes no sense.
The agents have always known that he killed Shanann. He admitted that months earlier.
Why would you kill your kids
But
if that
what
was why
happened
you killed your wife?
that took the lives of those two
You know
little
what I mean?
girls? His wife is dead, lifeless in the bed. And he looks to the doorway, and there's his 4-year-old daughter, Bella.
She's like, what's wrong? What's wrong with mommy?
And where was Shanann at that point?
Yeah, she's pretty much on the bed, but she was face down.
Wrapped in the sheet? What did you say?
Just said, you know, just didn't feel good. That's when I
started to carry her downstairs. And what? Carried her downstairs, back my truck up.
He took his dead wife in the truck, put his alive daughters in the truck with him, and went to the oil field.
Was Bella first or was Cece first? I don't really want to talk about this part. Those are my kids. It's my baby. I have to talk to them every night. Okay. Every time I see pictures, I don't know how this could have happened. Being a dad was the best part of my life. I took it all away.
At the oil field, he takes the 3-year-old first. He smothers her with her own blanket until she dies. And Bella is watching this entire episode.
She said exactly the same thing that happened to me and Cece. And then I said, I don't remember what I said. I don't know if I just said yes, like a horrible person, or if I just put that blanket over her too and did the same thing.
Same blanket, same way?
Mm-hmm. Okay. She said, no, Daddy. That's what she said.
After he places the 2 little girls in the separate oil tanks, he returns to the truck and his wife's dead body, digs a shallow grave, and buries Shanann there in the shadow of the oil tanks.
I felt like it was just like anger with Shanann, with everything that was just taking it out on everybody that was in front of me that morning. Right now I'd have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and one might be a 1-month-old son. Beautiful boy. Just like right now it's just me.
There's a term for what he did. Chris Watts is a family annihilator. Most of these family annihilators are in their 30s. They're white men. They are men who are passive in nature, who keep things in, and then all of a sudden, at some point, their pent-up rage explodes. This defines Chris Watts exactly.
What made everybody connect with Shanann was that she put her whole life out there with her kids.
That was funny.
They saw this loving mother with her 2 kids and her husband, and things went completely south. You know, don't believe what you see on social media.
No, exactly.
Somebody might appear to be happy and perfect family online.
What?
But you never know what's really going on.
I will continue fighting for my children, for my husband, for myself. And nobody's going to hold me back from my future.
I'll never forget this one. I'll tell you that. I never thought that I would have to deal with such horror, and I've seen a lot of bad